Hi guys, it's Claire. So today we'll be talking to you about how Australia is represented through film, comparing the movie Tracks from 2013 and the movie Wolf Creek from 2005. So the Australian desert is a dangerous place. It takes up to 70% of the continent's landmass and can reach temperatures of above 40 degrees Celsius. So being out there would be a tough challenge to face. It is an image that is greatly associated with Australia, therefore it is used a lot in the film industry. The movie Tracks and Wolf Creek both use the desert as the settings for the film. There are many other stereotypes throughout both movies that represent Australia. Tracks is a movie directed by John Curran that is based on Robin Davidson's memoir of her 17,000-kilometre journey from Alice Springs to the Indian Ocean. She treks across the Australian desert over 9 months at the age of 27 with her 4 camels and a loyal dog. She endures the harsh Australian desert mostly solo, with the occasional visit from a National Geographic photographer. Wolf Creek is an Australian horror film directed by Greg McLean. It is roughly based on multiple Australian crimes across the country. The story follows 3 tourists, one Australian named Ben and 2 British girls named Liz and Christy, who want to travel from Broome to Cairns. They stop at Wolf Creek Crater for a couple of hours, and when they return to their car, they find it won't start. They stay there until they see another car approaching from the middle of nowhere. This is where they meet Mick Taylor. He offers to tow their car back to his property, where they can spend the night and he can fix the car in the morning. They all fall asleep, believing he's nice and helpful, but little do they know that he's going to torture and kill them. Tracks and Wolf Creek have similarities between the landscapes used and the clothing that the characters wore. The Australian desert is an iconic scene and something that first comes to mind when thinking about Australia. That is, lots and lots of sand. Tracks is based off a woman's journey through the desert to fulfill her dreams of crossing Australia. Over the 9-month trip, she encounters how harsh and barren the desert truly is. She gets sunburned and dehydrated from the exposure to sun and heat with little water and shade available. Wolf Creek is set in the desert on mixed property where there is not much else apart from his sheds, the stolen vehicles, and lots more sand. The 3 tourists are not prepared to escape and walk through the desert. Ben escapes without Mick finding out and walks through the desert for days to escape, but ends up collapsing from dehydration and exhaustion. Both of these movies show just how barren and extreme the Australian desert truly is, which supports the idea of the stereotype. The clothing that Robin and Mick are both wearing in the films also support the Australian stereotype of the typical Australian farmer. They both are seen in akubras and flannel shirts. For Robin, this is for practicality reasons to protect her from the sun, but for Mick, it is meant to make him seem like a nice, approachable guy. In Tracks, the journey that Robin takes is a tremendous solo trip across the Australian desert. She lives up to the Australian stereotype of being strong and fearless. Travelling 17,000 k's over 9 months with just 4 camels, a dog, and the occasional visit from a National Geographic photographer would be a strenuous task to complete. She contemplates giving up a few times, but decides to fulfill her dreams of reaching the ocean. This is where she lives up to the strong and fearless stereotype, because she has to face lots of risk with little preparation. Another stereotype included in the movie is her best friend, her trusty dog Diggity. Lots of Australian films include a character and their faithful dog that's always by their side. For Tracks, this is Robin and Diggity. Diggity has been her best friend for a while and accompanies her during her travels. That is until the dog eats poisoned meat. After the dog's passing, Robin feels completely alone and not sure what to do. This shows how good of a companion Diggity was and also supports the stereotype. Wolf Creek subverts more stereotypes than supporting them. When the tourists first meet Mick, he portrays a stereotypical Australian bloke, friendly and always willing to help out. This is supported by his typical farmer-like clothing to make the tourists believe that he is approachable. This is what Mick wants. He is anything but the typical Australian bloke. He cuts off their only way of transport, then restrains them to slowly torture, rape and kill the tourists. He plays on their judgment and decision making when he pretends to be the typical Australian bloke to gain their trust to make his plans. Throughout the movie Wolf Creek, Mick Taylor uses typical Aussie slang such as bugger, bloody hell and others. He continues to keep up the slang even when he is doing horrible things to the tourists. This subverts stereotypes in a way as it puts a dark twist to the slang and how Aussies speak. The movie Wolf Creek was a massive hit overseas and would likely influence people's perceptions on Australians and Australia itself in an inaccurate way and undermines the stereotype of everyone being friendly and chill. Comparing both movies, Tracks only has a few Australian stereotypes that are supported, such as the landscape and the clothing that Robin wears, whereas Wolf Creek includes stereotypes but instead of supporting them, it subverts them. This negatively creates an idea about Australia and the outback being dangerous for the wrong reasons. The typical farmer image also has been negatively impacted, not only because Mick Taylor and his actions, but also because the whole movie is a lot closer to home than desired. It is based off 3 different murderers, Ivan Milat, Bradley Murdoch and the Snowtown murderers. In conclusion, the way in which Australia is represented through the movie Tracks and Wolf Creek do not do Australia justice. There is so much more to Australia than the desert and misleading typical Australian guys. Australia is a beautiful country and Australians are always willing to help one another out if they need. Thank you for listening.